Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Adebija. On the 1st of March each year, the world commemorates Zero Discrimination Day. Did you hear that? Zero Discrimination Day. What then is discrimination? Taking a look around trying to find a general term, what I was able to come up with says that discrimination is the unjust and prejudicial treatment of different categories or types of people based on parameters that could range from age to sex to ethnicity, race, ability or disability, and even partisanship. And so, of course, as the world commemorates Zero Discrimination Day, it's only right that we ask ourselves in Nigeria, how well are we doing about eliminating discrimination? Because you see, without a doubt, discrimination actually breeds contempt. That's right. We'll come to that. It breeds lopsidedness, I beg your pardon. It breeds a feeling of disenfranchisement. It breeds a lot of things, and none of them is good. When discrimination thrives, you can be sure that strife will thrive in that environment too. This evening, I have a very dear friend and also a colleague in the office with me to talk about this. How well? Let's analyze Nigeria and find out how well we are doing as a country, or how well we are not doing as a country as regards discrimination. With me in the studio is Mr. Edward Auta. He is not only our human resources head or head of human resources, he's also a wealth of knowledge. He's a student of history and also a social commentator. Mr. Edward, is great to have you in the studio.
Thank you for having me, Jackie.
Wonderful to have you here with us. Now, let us get right into it this evening. I'm going to be asking you some things. A lot of people have said discrimination in Nigeria is at an all-time high, but did it start now, or have we given discrimination a fertile ground to grow in Nigeria? So I'm just going to go straight to one of the most fundamental ones that we have in Nigeria, where we say Nigeria has 3 major tribes. You take a look at the Beni people, the Tiv, the Jukun, and so many others, the Idoma, the Igala. You take a look at those people and you ask yourself, are they really minor? So, I'm asking, to have propagated this idea that Nigeria is made up of 3 major tribes, is it discriminatory or not?
Thank you once again. Thank you once again for...
Excuse me, please. I'm not hearing you well, Mr. Auta. Let me be sure that the people can hear you. All right, go. Okay.
Okay, I would say that discrimination in Nigeria has been with us for a very long time, especially since independence. The notion, like you said, that Nigeria consists of 3 main tribes.
I beg your pardon. I'm not satisfied with the level of your audio. Please, could you check that for me? It's really low. I'm not satisfied with it. Or maybe we should change. Look, all right, go ahead, Mr. Auta.
All right. So, like I was saying.
Okay, this is better.
Like I was saying, the issue of discrimination in Nigeria dates back to many decades. I would say, in fact, right from the inception. This notion of three main tribes predates independence in Nigeria. I think the colonial masters probably somehow were responsible for propagating.
Was it the colonial masters or Nigerians who propagated
somehow,
this?
I'm going to tell you how.
Okay.
If you look at the concept, the type of system of administration that the colonial masters introduced at that time, particularly, you will realize that the systems of government were modeled after what they saw on ground being practiced by these three major tribes. For example, in the British colonial northern Nigeria, they introduced the indirect rule system. Why? Because they felt that it was convenient to use the existing emirate, kingship, and what have you that they met on ground, neglecting the fact that the North, as it were, and as it is today, does not consist of mainly the Hausa Fulani people. So, for administrative convenience and other factors, the British just looked at it from the context of the fact that these people are the majority within this region, and they decided to apply that system of government across the entire northern Nigeria. And then in the south, they did not implement kingship as it were, but in those places, the Igbos were the majority of the people in the southeast or in the southern province as it were then. But you will recall that in Benin, for example, even before the coming of the colonialists, in Boni and some other places, there were established kingships, with history, that dates back centuries. But you found out that simply because the Igbo people were largely Republicans, in nature, they also introduced a system that was based on the Igbo, whatever, for the entire region until, around 1914 when they decided to introduce the indirect rule system across Nigeria after the amalgamation. So I think because of this, it's not really written, but I believe that because of this system that was introduced by the British, these three major ethnic groups just, accepted this notion.
So because it was handed over to us, should we have propagated it? I mean, we were given to self-determine in 1960. Should we have propagated this? Because even when you take a look at the southeast, the Ijaw people, you take a look at the Bini people, and the Kalabari, these are people who even spread from, that part of Nigeria into the in quote, Yoruba speaking area of Nigeria.
Yeah.
So should we have continued? Should we have propagated this even on our money as is right now? Whether it is our slang, we talk about wazobia, whether it is on our money, we have three personalities on the 50 naira representing just three
ethnic groups.
Yes. In Nigeria. Isn't this, would you agree that this is part of what has been our problem?
Yes, it is part of what I would call the structural inadequacies. Some of the things, structural inadequacies that we inherited, that successive governments in this country have not been able to, address properly. there are a lot of conspiracy theories in this country. And of course, this one is one of it. And it is something that have continued to do us more harm than good. Because it is because of this notion that you see there are a lot of agitations for self-determination. It's like every ethnic group is struggling, to assert itself. Today you meet a lot of people. If you say they are northerners, they will say, no, me, I'm from southern Kaduna, or I'm from Taraba. So I am middle belt. I am not from the north. So, this has created this kind of agitations for self-determination. And it has even further exacerbated this issue of indigene settler dichotomy. Everybody wants to be recognized. Everybody wants to have their king. They want to have their chief and what have you based on their customs and traditions, because they feel that over the decades they have been oppressed, they have been suppressed, and they have been misrepresented. So it's actually something that our today's leaders should begin to look into.
As a way out of this kind of school of thought, should we start to dismantle this idea that we have three major tribes in Nigeria? Because even when you mention the Middle Belt, there are a lot of Nigerians who think that, look, even if Nigeria were to go, back to the regions and all of that, we would still have these issues. Because when you say Middle Belt, you not only have the Jukuns, you have the Biroms, you have the Tiv, you have the Idomas. So if we do not deconstruct, that is according to some people, that if we do not stop this, even at this level, the fact that we're saying, let us, go back or go forward to whatever hybrid of what we have now, we will not solve this issue of discrimination.
Of course, we won't. If you look at it, like I said, what is going on in Nigeria today is what I would call ethnic contests. Every ethnic group within their domain are trying to, prove some superiority, like we are the majority. So this notion has actually, created a scenario of, in every unit of our society, of this majority versus minority. I'm from southern Kaduna, for example. If you go to certain climes, you will hear this debate going on. This tribe are saying we are the majority in southern Kaduna.
Even in southern Kaduna?
Even in southern Kaduna. Yeah, even in terms of political offices, you find out that in certain local governments, somebody will say, look at you, you are a minority. You are not even up to a ward and all of that. So this has actually created a fertile ground, like I said, for a lot of discrimination, because that notion in itself is discriminatory. And like you said, it is time now for us to look at it again as a people, as a nation, and as a government to deconstruct. We need to empower, we need to build institutions, and we need to embark on serious and massive sensitization. This is where agencies of government like the National Orientation Agency, which have been comatose as far as I'm concerned, because it is not living up to its expectations in terms of what it is supposed to do. And we need to discuss this. I'm happy that you are bringing this up, and even the media has a role to play. We need to begin to discuss this as a very serious national issue. We need to give every human being, every tribe, a sense of belonging in this country. Whether they are 10 people or 20 people, they have a right to be identified as such.
So this is very interesting, Mr. Ota, because I was going to ask you next about the quota system and this federal character principle that Nigeria has. And you brought up something very interesting when you said, taking, for example, a place like Southern Kaduna, we have people, even within that community, saying, we are in the majority and you are in the minority. And so one would think that these are the kind of situations, or that our forefathers or the British foresaw to bring, I don't know how we came about this federal character principle. However, there are also Nigerians who say this federal character principle itself is discriminatory, using ageism and, in fact, ethnicism as parameters by which people are judged. So are we saying that if we have 5 people, for instance, from the same place who are capable of running this country, running it justly and with equity, we would rather have just one person out of those 5 capable hands, just because we want to bring in other ethnic groups who probably are not as capable as these other 5 who just happen to be from the same place. And so I'm just going to ask you, because what you said just painted a different and very interesting picture that I think is worth national discourse. This federal principle and quota system, which I think, by the way, some people have said has bred contempt, because when you think about schools, when you have exams, there are people who pass and they pass well.
And they don't get admitted.
And they don't get admitted because you just want to ensure that a certain group of other people are given a chance. And this has bred contempt. A number of people just think that, when you are from a certain place, you are not educationally sound. And so therefore, you were probably given this on a platter of gold. And so it has bred contempt of one group to another. So my question is, this federal principle, federal character principle and the quota system, does it breed discrimination? Is it discriminatory, or is it something that we should continue?
Well, if you ask me, I would say that the federal characters principle is both good for Nigeria and it is also bad. It is good because the intent, if you look at the reason why it was actually introduced, is to create a sense of inclusion, that every tribe in Nigeria, every region, no matter how small, should be represented at every level, be it employment, be it politics, in the military, and what have you. That Nigeria is our common heritage, and that whatever we have, no tribe should be prevented from being part of it. So if you look at the intention, it is actually novel. It is very great, but it is bad because the ethnocentric tendencies that are in Nigerians have prevented us from allowing the system to work. Let me use the same scenario you gave. If we say every region should be represented, it doesn't mean that we should lower the bar to accommodate certain quotas. If for example 100 slots of admissions are given to Kaduna State, and then examinations are administered nationally, and only 50 people from Kaduna State are able to meet criteria, or to meet all the parameters to grant them admission. We shouldn't say, if the cutoff mark is 60, for example, and then we have only 50 people from Kaduna that have scored 50, we shouldn't lower it to 40 so that we can have more people from Kaduna. No. We have given people equal opportunity. We have given all the states equal opportunity, equal parameters, equal criteria to access this admission. So if Kaduna is unable to produce 100 people, then it is not the fault, or it is not the problem of the examiner or the examination body. Rather, it is the problem of that state who have failed probably to, train their children, good enough, or provide them with quality education enough to give them access to those admissions. So you see now, it is the application of the federal character principle that is questionable, not the principle in itself. Because I want to assure you, knowing who we are in this country, if you abolish the federal character principle, in the context of governance, there are certain ethnic groups that might never get anything, even in terms of employment. So this...
Some people will argue that even as is right now, there are people or ethnic groups that do not feel like they're a part of the Nigerian project, because none of them have ever even gotten to a certain level, or have never passed a certain level when it comes to governance, even as is.
Yes, that is why I said what we need to improve upon is the application of this principle. And that can only be possible when we have visionary and selfless leaders. Because I can tell you, over the years, we have not been able to get that. Anybody who is in position of authority in this country pay lip service to this issue of federal character. If I'm from the north, all I'm thinking is, how can I have a northern-dominated workforce where I am working? Even in politics, if you look at the agitations that are going on in the country today, there are a lot of accusations against this government of promoting a northern agenda. Why? Because there are a lot of other sections and ethnic groups that feel either not adequately represented or not even represented at all. So you see, in this context, you will see that what is the basis for this complaint? You see people pointing at the federal character, saying, look, constitutionally, we are supposed to be represented. We are supposed to have a quota in this thing, and we don't have. So that is why I told you, you see, it's good in that context. But now, it is bad because the operators, those that are in charge at every level, the ethnocentric tendencies in them have refused them to do the right thing.
Okay, so this is very interesting. Before we go on a break, then let us juxtapose the federal with the state. And I'm talking about Kaduna State.
Yes.
One of the reasons why quite a number of people, especially of Kaduna State extraction, whether north or south of Kaduna, have with Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai is the fact that he made his cabinet so diverse, brought in people who he felt could do the job for him, and people who are not necessarily from this state. Yes. One would think that this would have been like a platform, what's the word I'm looking for? A jump, that jump place for Nigeria to say, look at how Kaduna thrived because we had different sorts of hands, Nigerian hands in the pot. Kaduna thrived. But a number of people will tell you that for the better part of this administration, it's been, one breakaway faction or the other, even from his own party, because people did not believe in that Nigerian, in quote, project where you have diverse hands in the pot. How would you address that?
Yes, like I said,
So I'm just trying to say, do Nigerians not thrive then? Do Nigerians not like this discrimination, this environment that we have created for ourselves?
That is why we cannot answer this question properly unless we look back. Where are we coming from? You understand what I'm saying? You see, people and groups in this country have been gravely marginalized over the years, in so many contexts, in so many spheres of their lives. So, and over the years too, there have been serious struggle. If you, in Kaduna State that you are talking about, you find out that there are a lot of socio-cultural organizations, like the Southern Kaduna People's Union. Why was it formed in the first place? To fight for the rights and privileges of the peoples of Southern Kaduna, the various ethnic groups of Southern Kaduna. You find out that even in local governments, you have community development, Baju this, Jaba this and that. all these organizations being formed to do what? So CAP was established in 1989. The Baju Development Association was established even much earlier, and it was the body that struggled for the creation of chiefdom, which was actualized very late in 1996. So you find out that we have had a history of discrimination or deprivation, and also a history of struggle against the status quo. So this is part of us already. So at every point in time, when the governor, for example, brings in people from somewhere, because of this notion, they say, we are at it again. Are you saying, for example, that in Kaduna State, you do not have people of that caliber, and all of that? So these are structural issues.
We are all Nigerians, and our constitution says that each person has a right to live. I'm just trying to understand, for us to understand the Nigerian mindset.
But then, in the context of Kaduna State, even though the constitution said we are all Nigerians, we have the right to live in any part and do what have you. But these rights are qualified rights, mind you. It doesn't mean that you can just come into Kaduna and with what is happening. For example, let me digress a little with what is happening with the farmers and headers. Just because the constitution says you can settle anywhere doesn't mean that a header can just move into Barnawa now, just come to Invicta premises with his heads and keep them and say the constitution have guaranteed me right to come and stay here. These rights are qualified. There are protocols that must be fulfilled before certain things happen. So people are saying, of course, even if we are going to have non-indigens work in Kaduna, contribute to the growth and development in Kaduna, we have a lot of people that have spent 5, 10, 20 years in Kaduna. They have businesses, they pay taxes and what have you. So why can't we have such kind of people in government? But mostly the complaint is that you bring people from, some Nigerians.
You bring people from Nigeria.
So there is actually nothing wrong. Even if you bring a white man from the US to come and work, if he can actually contribute to the progress and development of Kaduna State, ordinarily it should be a welcomed development.
So I want to jump on that word ordinarily.
Yes.
You said. Okay. So this means that the average Nigerian has a discriminatory mindset.
Yes, ordinarily. But because of the history of where we are coming from, we begin to cast aspersions on those kinds of decisions and all of that.
Because
so
let us not forget that even within the Southern Kaduna society, we have people who already think about people in, under the basis or under the umbrella of minority. This tribe is minor and this one is major. All right, let's go on a short break. If you're just joining us this evening, we're talking about the 1st of March every year being Zero Discrimination Day. The situation in which Nigeria finds itself, there are a lot of people who will tell you that the discriminatory nature of our policies and the way we view each other has been a huge part of that problem. You get a chance to join the conversation right after this break. Do stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us through the commercial break. Still on Invicta 98.9, and with me in the studio, a student of history, our head of human resources, and also a social commentator talking about Mr. Edward Auta. Zero discrimination. On the 1st of March, the world stops to commemorate and try to correct. People actually reflect on these issues, and at this time, more than ever, a lot of patriots of this great country think that Nigeria should actually reflect on issues like this, because for a lot of people, this is the foundation of the challenges that we face today. Before we went on that break, we had talked about several situations that we have on ground and we asked you, Mr. Ota, whether or not this is discriminatory in itself. Before I open up the phone lines, there's one more that I just have to ask, and this is the discrimination or not. I would like to hear from you that we see in the pay gap between, it depends on the parameter, between state and federal civil service or public service. We see the same kind of discrimination even in male and female pay. We've been made to understand that for males there is this dependency or dependence rate that is added to salary, especially at civil service level. And for women, there's nothing like that. And you and I know, Mr. Ota, that there are quite a number of women who are carrying even more dependence than some men out there. Now, fundamentally, would you say this is discriminatory in itself?
It is grave discrimination. I'm with you on this completely. Nigeria has not really done well in this regard. In fact, the discrimination is way, way beyond what you are even talking about. Nigeria is one of the countries, or one of the many countries in Africa that have not been able to make adequate legislations for equal work and equal pay as prescribed by the International Labour Organization. Like you are saying, there is nothing like dependency. Everybody has one person or the other that depends on him. It might not be children. It might even be your aged parents. It could be your siblings. It could be some people you have adopted or you have opted to, take care of. So what do you mean by dependency allowance for men, and then you are not giving, the same to women? So it is discriminatory in context, in whatever way you want to look at it. It is grossly discriminatory. So every laborer that does the same kind of work with his colleague should be entitled to equal treatment. Not just in salary, but in all aspects.
Allowances and
the rest of it. So, even not just women. You find out that in Nigeria, though on this one, the government have been trying to see. You see somebody who is a HND graduate, who probably have even spent greater number of years in school studying something. And then you go within the same organization, the same discipline. You see a HND holder, mostly in the private sector, earning 50,000 naira, 40,000 naira. And the same person with the same discipline in the same organization who is a graduate will be earning 120, 140,000. So how do you justify this kind of thing? And maybe even the HND holder may be even more grounded and may even be carrying more responsibilities in that organization, within that department, or within that unit. But he is doing what in the Nigerian parlance will say, monkey they walk, baboon they chop. So the same with the issue of women that we are talking about. So I think it is high time for government to make legislations that is going to address this issue. Nigeria is growing. If you go to advanced countries where labor is even paid sometimes in number of hours you put in. So who cares whether you are a man or a woman? If the minimum wage is $100 an hour, all what the employer wants is how many hours of work did you put up, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your age. So nobody cares if you have 10 wives at home or 70 children, or you don't have any at all. You are paid. If the payment for this job is 10 naira per hour, and a woman does it to the satisfaction of the employer, she should be paid 10 naira. The same applies to man. So this basically I agree with you in total that this ought not to be. And because it is part of us in Nigeria today, every right-thinking Nigerian should begin to speak up. These are things these are debates that we should begin to initiate, so that those who have the responsibility, of making these legislations, can begin to look at it. You look at the issue of minimum wage, for example, you find that a lot of the state civil service are not able to pay, or they don't earn, let me say, the same grade level, the same work. You will see that the salary at the state level is different from the salary at the federal level. For example, let me use the position of a messenger. A messenger is a messenger, whether in the public sector or in the private sector. So why should the messenger in the private sector be earning more than the messenger in the public sector at the state level, or the one in the state public sector be earning lower than the one in the federal public sector? So these are institutionalized discriminations, that are associated with the workplace, that Nigerians have not really looked into, that policymakers have refused to look into, because I know that international organizations like the ILO, the International Labour Organization, are putting pressure on countries to see how they can minimize some of these things. But over the years, our leaders have been looking the other way, because most of those who govern us, most of the politicians, are very, very comfortable. Issue of wages and salaries do not affect them. Going by what our senators, our reps, members, ministers, and what have you, if you look at the package, you can understand why they will not be worried that somebody who is earning below 30,000 naira should actually.
I wonder if they have those parameters too in their package. Have they taken care of themselves
so this
in
is
such a way that they don't face that?
Of course, if you say today you want to touch their own salaries and what have you, you hear a lot of hues and cries from within them or from within the political circle. But it is really, really, really something that we need to look at. And that will bring out the best in the people. Because if I understand, for example, if I understand that I do the same work with somebody and he's better motivated than me, we have the same qualification, maybe I'm even more effective on that job than him, and then he gets more. It's gross inequality, and then it dampens morale. In fact, I'm sure if we are to do some research, you'll find out that even some of the cases of mental disorders or mental stress, suicide and what have you, may be associated with this kind of things. Because if you are to carry out a survey and you begin to ask people how comfortable are they with their workplace in terms of emoluments and entitlements and what have you, you'll be shocked. You realize that a lot of people are living with grudges, they are living with a lot of pains and with a lot of negative thoughts, like we just did one kind of thing. So it's really something that as we commemorate the Zero Discrimination Day, that policymakers should begin to look into this, and more Nigerians should join their voices to demand for zero discrimination in the places of work. Like if you look at the Academic Staff Union of Universities, or let me say the tertiary education sector in this country, especially as it affects the universities, they use what we call the contis. So this contis is a salary, which is the Consolidated Tertiary Institution Salary Scheme. So you find out that it applies to all universities, public universities in this country, irrespective of whether it is federal or state, as far as salaries are concerned. What a professor in the federal level earns, is federal university earns, is the same thing with what a professor in a state university earns. Maybe there could be a few allowances and what have you that will vary, but in terms of basic salary, water allowance, this allowance, and all of that, the basic ones, you find out that the structure is the same. And they've been able to achieve this over the years because that they have a very strong union that can hold government to ransom, that can really hold government on their balls and to demand certain things and ensure that they are implemented. But how many of those unions do we have? The Nigerian Labour Congress, as far as I'm concerned, is comatose, especially the present leaders. They are, in my opinion, they've not been very effective in cutting, very good deals for the Nigerian workers. So I think if they are listening to us, this is a wake-up call. They should begin to demand, for some of these things,
well,
for workers.
Let's have the lines open so that other people can join in this conversation, talking about Zero Discrimination Day on the 1st of March and the fact that a number, if not almost all, of the challenges that we're facing in Nigeria stem from us having not just a discriminatory mindset, but even an environment in which discrimination thrives. Let's go take your calls now. The numbers are 081 40,000 989 and 070 800 989. Let's take your calls now. Hello, good evening. Good evening. Hello. We're connected. Good evening. And oh, by the way, we're live on Facebook, and so you can actually go there and drop your comments if you would. We cannot hear you. Here's hoping that you can hear us. Okay. All right. So let's go take another call. Let's see if we can take another call. Please do try us back. I couldn't get you. Let's see if we can hear you next time around. Hello, good evening. Hello. Good evening. Okay. Hello. I don't know what's going on. I cannot hear you. This is really, really not the way that I would want it. All right, but let's keep trying. Let's see if we can get the engineers in. In the meantime, you could go drop your comments on our Facebook page. We're live there right now, so I could take some comments before we have to go, because indeed we have run out of time. Hello? Unfortunately, that call got dropped. Let's see if we can squeeze in one or two this evening before we have to go. 081 40,000 989 and 070 800 989. Well, while we're waiting to be able to get across to them, there's still this other thing that a number of us find that we have to fulfill on our curriculum vitae whenever we have to do that, and that is this. Let me take this call. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Your name, please.
Okay, this time is coming from Kakuri.
Go ahead quickly, sir.
But my sister, this discrimination, I think our problem in this country, in Nigeria, it's more than corona. It's more than coronavirus. What is affecting us now? Like in every department in Nigeria, there is discrimination.
Are there some that we haven't mentioned that you would like to mention? Discriminatory things that we do in Nigeria.
Yeah, you see, the only thing I can mention is that we need to drop and to also to carry everybody along. That's the only way that we can end it.
Okay.
Everybody, we need to look at everybody as our brother and sister. That's the only way. That's the only way we can end it.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Let's take another.
Okay.
We'll need to take another. Good evening, Comrade Gabriel. You're welcome. You have only 30 seconds. We've run out of time.
What I wanted to say that I think they should discard this question of intelligence something. Because when you want to go for employment or how to go, we see where you're coming from. you, that illegal something will also be discarded so that I can be able to move forward as a country.
Okay. So that
Thank
was
you.
what I was going to bring up. Thank you very much, Engineer Comrade Gabriel. I beg your pardon. Comrade Gabriel, Mr. Auta just brought up what I was going to talk about. Some of these things that we find ourselves feeling on, when we want to introduce ourselves, what state you're from, whether or not you're married, what your sex is. Aren't these some things that we should be letting go of? Or do you think that this is necessary so that the person who wants to employ you knows exactly what he's getting?
Well, I think to some extent I will agree that we should discontinue with that system, because this system is what creates the enabling environment for people to discriminate on the basis of tribe, on the basis of religion, and what have you. If for example, we are human beings, we have our sentiments and what have you, as much as we try, to discourage that, you find out that from time to time people will, bring their such sentiments to play in the discharge of their duties. So if, for example, government is recruiting, or you are in an organization and it is recruiting, and then we remove this from our CVs, where you come from, where what your religion is, and all of that. So you see, the emphasis is just going to be on qualification based on merit. If we say we are looking for people with second class upper, we just go through CVs and see those that have this class of degree. Or we invite everybody for interview, and based on their performance, whether they are our tribe or not, we do away with it. But you find out that in Nigeria, we encourage this because we have a mindset. I am the head of human resources at Invicta. Sometimes people will come from my place and tell me how many people, or when I go to my tribal meetings and what have you, they ask me how many of our people have you been able to employ at Invicta? And then I ask them how many of our people have applied that are qualified whenever we are recruiting that I have refused to employ at Invicta. And then you find out that people will start, beating around the bush and saying, well, after all, when you live here, you will still come back home and all of that. So you can see that we have a discriminatory mindset. Our expectations are discriminatory in nature. They breed discrimination. So it's something that even within your community, whenever you are in position, you find out that you are fighting against these things. And why do people have this mindset? It is because this thing thrives in most societies. So when you are in position and you don't help your people, they will say, if you say, no, we are following merit here, they will say, but in this other place, they will begin to cite instances for you and what have you. So there are a lot of these things that are happening, that live with us, that we as a nation and as a people and as a government, like I said earlier, that we must put hands on deck and say no to this type of things, so that the best among us at every point in time will be in charge of us.
I would like to thank you so much, Mr. Edward Auta, for coming in this evening. Suffice it to say that you have analyzed and helped us see that indeed we are a people who have a discriminatory mindset, and brings to mind that the leadership of a people is a reflection of who they are. And so if we are complaining that we have a discriminatory leadership, perchance it is because we as a people, as Nigerians, are discriminatory in nature.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Edward Auta.
Thank you once again for having me.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you. You've been listening to Spot On this evening, and I hope you had a great time listening, because the prayer is that it will trigger discussions in homes to help us see how we have become a discriminatory people. And as long as we have discrimination, we are honestly sitting on a keg of gunpowder. From labeling people and racial or ethnic profiling to what you might consider the mundane, like job opportunities and even educational opportunities. Nigeria remains a country with great potential. Whether or not we are able to reach that greatness, that potential that we know we are capable of, as a people remains to be seen. Have a victorious evening.